Welcome back to Junction 119. This is Casen.
This is Kellan, and I literally jumped in here and started the show, and then Casen is dressed impeccably. Why don't you tell me what this all is about?
I will get into it, but we're going to talk Agatha, probably for a lot of the beginning of the show, and so I came dressed accordingly in my best Kevin Feige cosplay outfit here.
Indeed.
So I'm here ready to announce the next phase of the MCU slate.
Yes, where we're going from here, 2025 will be a huge year, for
And
Marvel.
Blade is still on shelved to be determined later.
Yeah, unreal stuff. Obviously, we're going to dive right in with Marvel to start off. A little bit of a different kind of show because I was essentially guilted into having to finish Agatha All Along for this show. Obviously, you had been wanting to talk to me about everything, and then of course the show ended. But then I had an insanely busy week last week, just crossover season with my line of work,
Mhm.
and this was literally the only time I could really squeeze in an episode, and you get it at the beginning of the week. So I do want to mention it is Veterans Day when we are recording this. So, thank you to all those who've served and are currently serving. It'll be after
Absolutely.
that by the time you hear this. But yeah, we've got sports on the docket. We've got of the weeks and stuff. It's going to be more of a catch up show than anything else. But let's get into it, Kason. Agatha All Along has come and gone. I ended up watching the episode in question, number 7, and then I watched 8 and 9 back to back on Sunday evening, literally the day
Hmm.
before we recorded this. I always like to give myself some time to kind of like give it a day. I think only one time ever did we do like an episode where I had just watched something, and then it's like, okay, let's go right now.
Yeah.
So, um, why don't you kind of lead us off, man? I mean, I have a few notes that I did write down, but I would kind of just like to. I mean, maybe we should start at episode 7 since you were kind of
Yeah,
waiting to
yeah.
hear.
We'll go back to episode 7. So we did I believe we talked all the way up to the big reveal of
It's
actually I don't think we did
spoiler warning,
I
by
don't
the
think
way. Spoiler
yeah,
warning
spoiler
for
warning obviously.
we're not going to do like
Uh
a non-spoiler. We're talking full spoilers. We timestamp our show, as I say all the time. So if you haven't watched it and you won't want it spoiled, go timestamp, go to another part of the show. But yeah, go ahead.
I will back up because I don't believe we got the chance to talk about 6 because I think we ended off at the end of 5
I think
with
you're
the big
correct.
reveal. And so just briefly talk about 6. Um I thought 6 was interesting. I mean, I just thought it was kind of cool to get that type of information over like what happened. And so clearly like the concept of the teen who we know his name is William Kaplan was in a car accident and died at the
Yeah,
precise moment that the whole thing was blowing up in Westview. And so
the hex was
I
going under. Actually, it
yeah,
was
and so
yeah,
Billy's like soul, I guess, went into William Kaplan's body, and
yeah.
that was
Wow.
kind of how that whole thing happened, which crazy. Uh, I thought that was, a very interesting backstory, and that was helpful to know, I think, going in. Um, did you have anything else to say about 6 before we move on to
Six
7?
was fine. I was definitely some mystery of what was going on. I ultimately thought that the reveal was a little bit undercooked. Like I thought, oh, okay, this is how he is, but really that's how we're going with how he's Billy Max. Okay, that's fine. Like in other words, not really a whole lot happened in the episode. It was kind of boring and it felt at the time a little bit lazy the way that
Hmm.
they did it, but they made up for it in the finale episodes, and I will get to that. We'll get to that.
Well, yeah, there were two things in there that I at least just wanted to point out. The
Sure.
first one was the the William Kaplan's family's in the car accident going home from his bar mitzvah, I guess.
Yes.
And at his bar mitzvah is Lillian, I think
Yeah.
Li Lila, yeah, the
Lilia.
one Lilia, the the one like, you know, the witch that can read, palms or whatever, futures, whatever.
Right.
She was there as like entertainment. So that was interesting. And we do learn that she was involved in that somehow. Uh and then the other thing was I want to get your thoughts on the cameo, the surprise cameo in the parking garage. Uh we get Evan Peters back.
Yeah, we do get Evan Peters back. I I really didn't expect that because I it's a little weird because Evan Peters is in this weird position where I swear he was probably told or sold some sort of situation where, yeah, you're going to come in and be part of the MCU, thinking you're probably going to somehow be retained as Quicksilver and X-Men stuff. And his appearances in these two shows have been so strange. It's like, like he really signed on for this, being kind of the crazy guy. But on a serious note, it seems that the effects that Wanda had on people are still being felt. You know, it seems like he really has been damaged because of what happened there. But he essentially tells him his experience and essentially learns, Billy had a brother, Tommy, the Quickster, the speedster, and the
Hmm.
mind reader. You know, and what can Billy do right after that accident? Read minds. So it became pretty clear. Oh, okay, so that's the Billy out of the two twins. But essentially, Evan Peters confirmed it.
Yeah. I I did like the interaction though because it did, there were some other things that hinted at the beginning of the show with like the interactions with Sharon and
Yeah,
some of the other people that sort of talked about how rough it was for the people of Westview
yeah,
for the whole incident. And so seeing, Agatha's living in this guy's house and
yeah.
like his whole life is destroyed. So I thought that was interesting to sort of show the stakes of like what had transpired there.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know precisely if like Evan was lied to about it. I mean,
Right.
I would
I
like to
was more
think,
just making a
yeah,
joke there, but
yeah. I mean, I would
uh
like to think that he was told this is literally a joke and like
yeah.
it's going to be a meme role situation.
Yeah.
But
Can Evan Peters please get something better to do in the MCU? Anyway, uh moving on from that episode. So we got the reveal, we got the backstory episode.
yeah.
I can say this without any kind of hesitation, Casen. Even with the finale, episode 7 was my favorite episode of this entire show. I don't and really not really even close
Hmm.
because I totally understand. I think you kind of our last show you said straight up, I didn't see Marvel ever really doing something like this. I would like you to elaborate on exactly like what you mean by that because they haven't ever done something like this before, but you made it sound like some sort of crazy thing was going to happen and I'm like,
Well,
what did they do in this?
okay. So let me sort of explain
Break it down,
first of
Feige.
all. So the particular like plot lines of episode 7 to me, there were two things in particular that felt very Lost related. Like
Yeah.
like I felt like they were taken from Lost in terms of like inspiration. And so I want to at least get this right because I want to make sure I understand this.
Yes. Her we're seeing just to describe, we're seeing things from Lilia's perspective directly because I even had this thought if we watch this episode in sequence, we would
Yes,
just
okay.
if we watch this episode, it's more interesting because we as the audience are seeing things from Lilia's perspective. If that wasn't the case, we would just think, okay, Lily is going crazy here, but then she comes through at the end. But seeing it from her perspective makes the episode that much more interesting.
Yeah, so and very particularly the the whole like jumping around Lilia's life to me felt exactly like it's Lost season 4 episode 5. It's called The Constant.
About
Anybody
Desmond,
who's
correct?
seen Lost, yes,
Yeah.
it's the one about Desmond to where he keeps jumping back and forth and he goes to visit Charlie or not Charlie, Daniel Faraday.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's all this time travel stuff going on back and forth because basically what we find out is that in order to get the information they need on the island,
Yeah.
there's like events that happen back in time for him to go back to Oxford to visit Daniel before Daniel went to the island. It's super crazy. And I thought that was like sort of the narrative style of this
Mm-hmm.
episode. And then there was also one where, or there was also the very end of the episode to
Yeah.
when Lilia basically sacrifices herself. That gave a little bit of like the end of season 3 when Charlie sacrifices himself. and he had the not Penny's boat on his hand. That felt a
Right.
lot
Right.
similar of that.
And if you
And
haven't seen Lost, just to kind of put the concept in there, Desmond was a character in Lost who essentially, like Lilia, was like kind of living his life out of sequence, but he could foresee how people were going to die, basically. And
mhm.
Lilia is implied to have a little bit of that, right? She essentially, so she reminded me of Desmond right away. And if you recall in Lost, Desmond's going through this whole sequence where he saves Charlie's life like 5 or 6 times because he sees it coming. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we see it from his perspective, and it's like, oh, and then he prevents it. But he can only affect fate for so long. Relating that to this episode, I thought it was fascinating how the episode literally begins with Lilia falling, and it's a perception, but you can't see anything else. And then by the end, you know what she's falling towards. But then the very end of the episode, it's like a Benjamin Button situation. The very end of the episode, she comes back to her consciousness, and it shows her as a little kid again. And I first of all, that would be just a nightmarish type situation to go through. You live, you get to a certain point where uh, I don't know if it was necessarily implied, but all of these witches are very, very old. Correct? It's all implied that they've essentially used their magic to stay alive far past what they should have. Right?
Hmm.
It's almost like a very creepy version of like witch dementia that Lily is going through. It's like she's reached a certain age where she's starting to kind of lose it, and this is how it presents itself. You
Yeah.
know?
Well, I mean, also, I mean, not to get like incredibly down a rabbit hole here, but like,
Sure.
I don't know if you've ever seen Doctor Who, but
I have not.
I mean, for long story short, for anybody who has, you'll know what I'm saying. But the interactions when she's talking with like her teacher or whoever
Hmm.
that old lady is, um, the interactions that they had were kind of similar to the Doctor and River song, where the concept of the two characters is that basically they meet in opposite ends of each other's timelines. So
Ah,
like
okay.
the first time that the Doctor meets River Song is basically her death,
Hmm.
and then the first time that River Song meets the Doctor is like they go back and forth, and so they never end up meeting in like each other's similar timelines. They always like go back
Right.
and forth, and so they always have to like figure out what they've done together and experience. It's very convoluted, but like if you've seen the show, you'll know what I'm talking about.
No, but I understand. I get that. It's almost like pieces to the puzzle that are going to be out of
Yeah.
sequence. And I actually made this comment to Casen because in this episode, we do get the reveal of Rio being Death, Mistress Death, who
Yeah.
confirming a few different things. One, the concept of that does exist in the MCU because that was Thanos' original, in the comics, original motivation was to court death. It was
Mhm.
to get all the stones and take everybody out. So they've established that that is a physical manifestation in the MCU now. Of course, it's Aubrey Plaza, kind of the perfect actress for such a kind of eccentric and scary. But I'm not even gonna lie when I say that the reveal of Rio being deaf, that scene when she made the pose to the card, and then they show the incredible prosthetics they did, because that was all actually done. They put a skull on
Mhm.
Aubrey Plaza's face for the bottom half. That actually gave me chills. Like I actually had to like stand up because I was freaked out at that concept, but that they had just played that card literally in the situation, right? But the way they revealed that, I was like, whoa! That gave me actual chills, and definitely one of the scarier moments for me anyway of the show, but in the MCU. Uh, Incredible storytelling in the way they did it too. Just wanted to say that.
Yeah, yeah, no, I definitely agree. I mean, I in like a good way, I had no idea what was happening for the large majority of this episode.
Yeah,
It was just like, what is going on? Like you kept gutting back and forth. You're like, I have no idea. And then at the end, you're like, oh, okay. And you're like, and then they put that down, and you're just like,
it's a, it's
what?
a, it's a fantastic episode to rewatch, which I actually did do. I rewatched just that episode for the most part. I did skip a little bit around, but fantastic episode. Ultimately, Lilia helps them get through the trial and take out the Salem Seven, which was pretty impressive the way it was done. Uh, and yeah, I really really loved it. I thought the writing of that episode, the fact that it's from Lilia's perspective, 100% makes it. Like you can't.
Mhm.
That episode's pretty mediocre, and you just think Lilia is crazy if you watch it from any other perception of the actual sequence of events that happens. Right. So is what it is. That was that. Do you want to move on to 8 and 9 here?
Yeah, yeah, we can move on.
And if it relates back to anything that we've talked about already, please just go ahead and say it. But I thought it was interesting how they did these 2 episodes because episode 8 actually kind of resolves the actual plot of the show. And I was actually
Yeah.
sitting here thinking, what is 9 even going to be about? Because I'm sitting here thinking to myself,
Yeah, me too.
yeah, I was sitting there like, okay, so the show's over. Like this could have been the finale by itself, but there's one more full episode. I was like, okay. And of course, what happens in it. Of course, they get off the road, they get through the last trial. Jen gets her powers back and gets out of there. But I wanted to kind of skip ahead to Agatha is going to just death needs one of them. You know what I mean? It's one of those situations where she's like, the natural order is that one of you's coming with me. So make up your minds now. Agatha was going to go, but then she, in a probably only unselfish act she did in this entire show, because I walk away from this show saying, okay, Agatha's 100% a villain. Um, I don't see her as a good person. They don't see, there's no redemption arc here, and I can appreciate that because in a show like Echo, where they essentially turned her into an antihero, I really thought it would have been cliche for it to end with Agatha's like actually good. It's like, no, she's actually pretty terrible. she,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
and we'll get to that, but like they
yes,
definitely do not like, and I think they've said it from the beginning is that like I think Jack Schaefer said it at the beginning is that like this is not a thing to make you out to like Agatha. Like
no,
this is she has never been a character in the comics or whatever that like you would end up thinking is, redeemable. I mean,
no.
it's
Yet,
just
however, we did get a hero origin story in this show. It's just not the one we were expecting, right? You
mhm.
got Billy, who, by all sense, is a good, virtuous guy. Did not like, was always trying to do the right thing. Um, a little bit of feistiness in him too, like willing to not pull those punches. A little bit reminding me a little bit of his mom, Wanda,
Mhm.
when she was good, of course. Like, uh, good
I think they did
heart of
do a
gold,
really
but
good
do not make
job.
her mad.
Yeah, they did do a really good job of sort of giving Billy's character the same traits of like has the right like motivations, but like if something is going off, like he is gonna go psycho.
Yeah, if something pops off in the wrong way, he will explode. Heck, we saw it happen in this show.
Yeah.
Shattered his sigil right off. And so okay, so that happens, and then of course, comic book accurate, he shows up in that big yard situation. He looks fantastic. I was like, "Yep, that's Wiccan from the comics." Gosh darn it, if they didn't do it again, Marvel. I was like, great costume design and everything. But Agatha was correct as well. I have to say, when Agatha actually died, kissing Rio and kind of just succumbing finally, that scene where she falls on the ground and like the plants kind of all
Yeah.
take her. I thought the effects of that were very, very awesome. I thought that was
Yeah,
really
I
well
thought
done.
I thought the way that was shot, where like it just the way it just moved, and all of a sudden she's going down. I thought that was done really well,
Very much
and
so.
really creatively.
So obviously that happens. Things are kind of resolved. Wiccan in a lot of ways is
And then Wicked, and then Billy just leaves.
yeah. Billy
He just
just
like walks
leaves,
to his
and
car.
much like his mom before him is leaving Westview with a really weird like what is it with this kid? What is it with this and this kid? But at least they're not all glaring at him. He's got the full like thing on and everything suit on. It's like, all right, let me just get in my mom's SUV and drive home. And so it's like okay, so it does that. But then of course the very end of the episode, it's revealed like, oh, Agatha's still around, but she's a ghost. And then I'm sitting there thinking, okay, what's 9 going to be about? And then, of course, 9 begins and it's 1750. And I'm like, okay. So we're finally going to get the backstory of what happened. Like, essentially, Agatha's kind of origin story. Uh,
Well,
sort of.
well, the end of eight, we sort of like they sort of direct us towards what is going to be revealed at the end of nine,
Yeah.
but like there's a bit of a cliffhanger there at the end of eight that we're sort of led to believe, and so that I think is the main cliffhanger
Yeah.
between these two. But
Right. Right.
yeah, but then I thought it was super cool that we got to go back and sort of get a lot of Agatha's backstory of the whole situation with her son.
Her son, her relationship with death.
Hmm.
It was very cool to see Rio as the original Green Witch all the way back then. Like it was kind of cool to see she was a little bit more lighter. She had more, and really when you look at her like you look at death, not to get too morbid here on this cast, but when you really think about her role in terms of like what the personification of death would be, it is the natural order, right? I mean, it's so when I look at her that way, I'm like, okay, I don't really see her as a character anymore now as a concept because they showed with Alice actually in the previous episode when it's your time, she appears to you and then you kind of walk away with her, you know? And they showed that
Hmm.
in the previous episode because it made it that much more powerful when it happened to Agatha's son, which let's get to that. Agatha, we kind of see the his birth, we see kind of Nicholas with him with his things, but it seems like from the very beginning, she was 100% using him to trick other witches and take their power.
Yeah.
She comes from this like kind of kill or be killed mentality, and this show does a very good job of showing that witches are not innately bad. If anything, she is the exception. She's using the power in a bad way, and because she sees it as a means to, if I don't do this, someone else will do this, and I need to
Hmm.
maintain my power. And I'd rather be the one witch with all this power than be in a coven, quite literally. And she takes out quite a few covens. And that was even before with what happened in Nicholas, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's also very interesting to see like we kind of find out that basically it was Nicholas who pretty much wrote the Ballad of
Yeah,
the Witch's
the
Road
road.
song.
Yeah, the road song.
Agatha like they kind of made it together, but and the like seeing, Nicholas performing the song as sort of like a is like a way for them to, be like, witches, if you're here in this room, this is where like come with, like
Almost
sort
like
of
a
yeah,
like a song that you'd hear, almost like a Negro spiritual. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
that where there was hidden meaning and hidden messages in there at a time when like Underground Railroad type thing, a lot of the time it was a
yeah.
song, but historically it was also a codifier, right? It was like
Hmm.
something signifying, hey, if you do this or you do that, you know, it's actually giving you direction of where to go. And it's I kind of looked at it that way. I kind of really kind of looked at the whole Battle of the Witches Road thing in that way. Um, so kind of moving on here. So you see the scene, a very sad scene. I mean, Nicholas gets up with Rio and walks away, and implying that he passed away. He was coughing too, so I think it's kind of implied that he had some sort of disease, which in the 1700s
Yeah.
a lot more common for your common ailments like that to turn into to death, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And anytime that, let's be real, anytime they've played with historical pieces in the MCU, they always do it flawlessly because the idea is that all of this stuff is happening in joint with our actual history, right? All these locations. And so this was kind of their version of the Salem witch trials and stuff like that. So Agatha, of course, mourns her son, but I think in a lot of ways becomes a lot more vindictive, but it also
Hmm.
shows that regardless of what anyone has said about Agatha about her in this show, no, she didn't. She just lost her son. She didn't sell him in. If anything, had her son lived, she probably would have ended up a better person because it's very clear that her kid was going to be a good kid. So, any thoughts on any of that? I mean, that's where I kind of got. I
Well,
think she kind of completely lost it when her son passed away through no
yeah,
fault of her
I
own.
mean,
She didn't do anything. Yeah,
it is sort of implied that Nicholas, because like he makes comments about things like, why are we killing these witches? Like,
true.
and so it is definitely sort of implied that the like possibly, if she would have been able to spend more time with Nicholas,
And she kept saying, "I want more
that
time." Yeah,
then yeah, then maybe, he would have been able to turn her, away from that. And yeah, I mean, it was very interesting to see basically her breaking point, and that was
yeah.
like she when she just sort of went off the deep end, and they had a uh great montage of just going through the centuries of her just annihilating coven after coven. Um, and that was, I think, insightful to just kind of see how she basically had this whole act to
Yeah,
perform out,
she had
and
this whole
then
act.
and then seeing
Yeah,
that seeing that turn into the beginning of the show with them in her basement, and that was exactly what happened. And then all of a sudden,
Right. An actual door opens
an
underneath
actual
them.
door
Yeah.
opens up, and she's
and it
like,
and it's like,
uh
oh, she's I would have been like, oh, absolutely not. And if they weren't about to get just taken out by the Salem Seven, there's no way I'm going down that rabbit hole. But yeah, that kind of amazing idea of, yeah, the road was not a thing prior to you, where they go ahead and imply that, again, chaos magic. And it's one of the things I have written down here. Wiccan literally willed the road to exist. Hence why he had something to do with kind of every trial succeeding. Because it only
yeah,
makes sense that the witch that would have created this road would be the one to get off of it, right? Now, again, chaos magic, like his mom before him, he's incredibly powerful. We know this. That's just how it goes. But I did think that was fascinating. I was like, okay, so even he, like his mom, can create something out of sheer feeling, and it can actually be tangible and real. So I kind of look at the road as his version of the Westview anomaly that
yeah.
Wanda did. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, and it's sort of a great moment. Well, it's backing up
Yeah,
because then I mean, Agatha comes back as Ghost Agatha,
she's a
which
ghost. Yep.
I believe is a thing in the comics, right? In that
Yeah.
there's a big plot, with her as a ghost. And so that was kind of funny, in that she's basically this thing that's just gonna haunt with
Yeah.
Billy forever.
She's like Casper. And I'm like, she's
Yeah,
comical. She's like still trying to figure out how all this works. And I'm thinking to myself, I like this. It's a little cartoony, it's a little comic booky, but you need a little bit of that. I thought it was pretty comical because I thought to myself, well, okay, so Agatha's so powerful that, yeah, she's quote unquote dead, but she's so powerful that like she doesn't necessarily have to cross the bridge yet. You know, it's
yeah.
like, yeah, I lost my body, but like, all right, so now I'm a ghost. So yeah, she still
Yeah,
exists on this
I don't know
side. You
if
know,
I don't know if that was something to do with the fact of like her relationship with Rio
yeah,
Death.
that's true.
I don't know if like that's why she's allowed to remain. I have no idea, but
No,
um
yep,
but it was very interesting to see their whole like fight in the basement, of like him coming to terms with the fact that he killed
yeah.
the the other witches.
The
Um
three on the road are
yeah,
ultimately dead because of
that
him.
he basically killed them, and and he's like taking us in. He's like, I don't want to be that type of witch,
Yeah,
and I'm not. I like I even though I might, I guess, associate with you, Agatha, I don't want to be
yeah.
like you.
No, I don't want to be like you, and showing that there's a clear emphasis once again, showing his dark side of like, I
Yeah,
will just bury you, and oh, you don't want to go, well, there's a spell I can do to force you to go. And it's almost like a back pocket thing in case Agatha ever really makes him mad, right? um and it's just such an interesting thing with these two characters because I feel like Agatha feels like she needs him. uh
hmm
and I really do think that they are trying to imply through this whole show that the teen in a lot of ways does remind, well, Billy reminds her of his own son and what could have been,
Yeah,
if
a
he
hundred
had
percent.
survived. Like that's what's going on here, 100%.
Yeah.
There's a motherly type thing going on there. So so yeah, that dynamic could be interesting to see, but I did like how he essentially made a grave on where the site was with the three
hmm
names, kind of signifying, the road and what it meant and everything. But but there's another side of this I wanted to mention. They they did in the previous episode imply that like if you see Tommy's consciousness and Agatha's trying to help him out, if you get what you want most, you get to leave the road, quote unquote, right? Well, he, with Agatha's help, put Tommy's consciousness, unfortunately, into some kid who was about to pass away, right? Somewhere, implying that he was going to drown, right? So
hmm
Tommy's out there somewhere, and that's literally what she says to him at the end. Let's go find Tommy. And it's like, okay, that doesn't in any way to me signify season two. That just makes me think, okay, the next time we see Wiccan and or Agatha, it's to do that. That's what they're off to go
Yeah,
do.
yeah,
That's the
yeah. Well,
direction they're
yeah.
pointed in.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, I mean, going back forward into potential future uh into future storylines with these characters. Like,
Yep.
I think Billy slash Wiccan is going to be a big part of whatever ends up being like the Young Avengers
Oh, for sure.
storyline.
Absolutely.
Because I mean, from with the comic books, there's the big storyline of all the Young Avengers come together to try and find Wanda. And I think that
Mm.
probably is the perfect story for them to do. Of we'll get to see Kate Bishop, Cassie Lang, a Billy it may, before or Billy with or without Tommy. I don't know if maybe part of that would be them finding Tommy, and then going on to try and find what happened to Wanda.
Yeah, and I don't think necessarily we've hit every single point, like every new Young Avenger yet. I still think there's probably because I didn't expect that from this show. That's probably the biggest surprise that this show had for me. I really did not expect us to be walking out of here with another Young Avenger. I thought it might
Mhm.
I thought it might have been able to happen, but from the moment that it was revealed and that M popped on his head and it was like revealed to be Wiccan, I was like, oh wow, okay, so this show is going to go some directions. Like, and one of the things the best Marvel content at the helm of Mr. Feige, as you are so eloquently dressed, sir, as him, I feel like my time wasn't wasted. I feel like by no means there's always a reason to watch something because they're going to take the story some direction and you're going to be happy that you have watched it.
Mhm.
Totally describes this show too. If you recall, I was very skeptical. That's two for two, by the way. This showrunner is I was openly talking trash about the show on the way in, and I walked out saying, "Okay, that blew my mind." Because if you recall, I was not a fan of WandaVision. We were in the midst of the pandemic and everything, and I thought we just had the end of maybe the greatest movie saga of all time, and we're starting Phase 4 out with WandaVision because remember, because it was like going to start with like Guards 3, and then all that stuff happened, and then it ended up the pandemic and everything. We're starting with WandaVision. Yeah, we started with WandaVision, all right, and I got slapped upside the head twice by the showrunner. So thank you very much. That was appreciative of the content, but yeah, that's that. I mean, ultimately great show. Any other thoughts you want to say? We didn't touch on.
Yeah, no, I mean,
I don't want to quite write it up yet.
I no, I mean, I'll just sort of say that, yeah, I mean, I think that definitely, I think Jack Schaefer knows what she's doing, in
What's her
terms of
name?
this, Jack Schaefer.
Jack Schaefer. Okay,
Yeah. Uh, it's short for Jacqueline.
gotcha,
Um,
gotcha. Yep.
and Yeah, I mean, I think she definitely knows what's going on with this sort of side of the universe. So I mean, I would love to see her get an opportunity to kind of keep this whole, like, to sort of take over a lot more of the like Marvel TV shows, because
Yeah,
she clearly has an idea of like what needs to be happening, with this sort of structure. And so it'd be cool if she, took over sort of the storyboarding of like the Young Avengers stuff and did a lot more of that. At least like a higher like EP level.
yeah, and
Um,
and in the greater conversation, when we were sitting here a year ago, Casen, at the end of Loki season 2, which we collectively loved, and I could watch all of Loki again. I loved it so much. I could watch this again too, but I would say this: the structure of these shows is starting to be understood by a good handful of directors, and when you've gone two for two, like the showrunner for Loki or the showrunner for Jacqueline Schaefer here, there's something to be said for that. But I also would say maybe keep her on the television side. Not that I wouldn't give her a movie, I totally would, but TV is hard. Story structure like this is hard, and to not make it episodic and uh, movies, I have a feeling Marvel's got that on lock. But I'm with you. It would be nice to see a handful of directors just kind of stay in the television space because I mean I would take 10 more of this.
yeah, I mean, I just as a point that I thought was interesting was like I was just looking up on our Wikipedia, and it cites that like the people who made her want to be a director and were going to film when she was a teenager were people like Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez. And so
Mm.
that kind of makes a bit more sense when you think about her style, of like kind of out there, directing, it makes a lot more sense when you think about the directing style and some of the storyboarding of the structure of the shows is it's like okay, like like some of the non-linear storytelling and stuff fits a lot with like Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah.
You think of things like yeah, some of his other movies and things. So
But I'll say
it makes
I'll
sense with
say this
that.
too. Yeah, it makes me think like if Tarantino was going to do a television episode, like yeah, it would
Yeah,
probably be a
yeah,
lot like stuff in here.
yeah,
Also be
yeah.
a lot of talking, a lot of stuff may not necessarily be happening on screen, but you're entertained by just the dialogue. I'm like, yeah, I mean that's a Tarantino movie, that's for sure. uh
Yeah, absolutely.
so I'd like to rate this up. Obviously, we have a Marvel scale, bronze, silver, gold, and vibranium. Which I think for Deadpool and Wolverine, we kind of like said adamantium is also equal to
Yeah,
vibranium at the top.
yeah, yeah.
We kind of brought that up. That's kind of the pseudo rating system we have here. So what would you rate this?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd give it gold. I mean, I think it was entertaining, unique. I mean, there were obviously, some slower parts of the show, but I thought for what the goal of it was, which seemingly was to kind of finish the clean up the loose ends from the Westview storyline,
Yeah.
and at the end of it, set up Wiccan as a future character. I think they did a great job of sort of showing a lot of backstory with Agatha and answering a lot of questions that we had, and displaying a lot of the power that Wiccan's going to have moving forward for him to be able to create a whole like alternate dimension with his
Yeah.
brain.
Yeah, with just feeling alone, it's just wow. I also would give this gold. Now, I don't want some people to hear that and think, oh, you wouldn't give it vibranium. Listen, we don't just hand that out, okay? You and I have made it clear. We don't just hand that out. We ranked every MCU like project basically. I forget what phase it was. I think I forget from phase 4. I forget what it was,
Yeah,
but
yeah, we went through a
our like
lot.
third ever show, we ranked all these, and I think between us, we only had like 3 or 4 vibraniums out of like all those projects.
Yeah,
So yeah, we don't just hand it out. But I thought to myself, if Loki is a vibranium level show, which I'm pretty sure we both said it was, this is definitely a gold for sure
yeah,
because it definitely starts a bit slow for me. I was not a big fan of like really the first couple of episodes. I'm thinking, okay, where are they going to go? This, but it just kept getting better. It kept getting better. Like you said, if you're a huge Wiccan fan, you probably could push this to vibranium. But I don't want someone to hear that and think, oh, it's not the very top. I'm like, no, but it's still like top tier Marvel content. Like this is what you need to strive for with these TV shows, not stuff like Secret Invasion, which flopped big time. Real showrunners with a real version from end to end that know where it's taking. And actually, I think stuff like this really benefits from being a miniseries. Like I don't need another. I don't think we're gonna get one. I don't need another. Like I don't need another. I don't need a season 2 of this. I really don't. Not everything needs to say season 2.
mm.
We're not doing extra seasons for the sake of keeping the show going. Only do an
I
extra season if there's more story to tell, like there was with Loki.
yeah, like focusing on the I guess the limited series or whatever you want to call it, to where it's abundantly clear that like there's not another season, like it's a standalone thing that just is, however many episodes of to get this one story, because it's
Yep.
it's essentially just like a fairly long movie.
Yeah, exactly. And I also would say a few other takeaways. Joe Locke, who plays Wiccan, I think he's going to be great moving forward. I thought everyone did a great job. I did want to pull this up. Deborah Jo Rupp for the little bit she was in
Yeah.
there. She was great. Rest in peace to her character, I guess.
Hmm.
We do get Jen. Jen gets out of there and she gets her power back.
Yeah.
So Jen's still out there. That's not a whole lot is out there by the end of this show, but she's out there. Agatha's a ghost. Wiccan is established essentially.
No, I mean I will just say though, I
Yeah.
mean absolutely congrats to Sashir Zameda. I mean
Oh
she kind
yeah.
of launched her career from SNL. And so
I didn't know
that
that. That's cool.
yeah, I don't know if it, yeah, I remember when she was on SNL, I think it was 2014 and 17. And
Awesome.
she's been in a bit more like sitcom type of stuff since then. And so, I mean, getting a role like this is awesome. So,
And she
uh,
had acting chops in this show. I mean, I thought everyone brought it. Everyone had genuine, like they made it believable. And it's even cooler when you're put in the situation in this show where these are really super powerful beings who are in their own right. Where they all have dealt with really spooky things, and yet they're terrified of what's going on this too, on this journey too. You know what I mean? I feel kind of bad for Alice. I feel kind of bad for Ali An did a great job, but I feel
mhm.
kind of rough because Alice finally like has her has her demons like exercised and then she dies. It's like, well,
Yeah,
yeah, she even says that. Like, oh man, like,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like, but I'll say this: Aubrey Plaza. I really hope we see her again. This was such a
yeah,
unique, perfect for her kind of role, and they establish her as Mistress Death in the MCU. I mean, come on. I did not see that coming. That wasn't on my bingo card for 2024.
yeah.
So, I mean,
I
yeah.
the only yeah, I mean the only other thing that I'll say about just like the cast is the guy that plays William Kaplan's dad,
Hmm.
Paul Addleston. He was in Prison Break like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
like
he
so
was
like
Prison Break.
that's like the first thing I think of when I see him. So it's very funny. I just keep thinking about his Prison Break character.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think you'll definitely see some more of these folks again. Catherine Hahn, of course, her personality, she carried the show. She shows that she's much more than a comedic actress. I mean, the first time I ever saw her in anything was Parks and Rec. She plays kind of
Mhm.
the big shot. Uh, she plays the big shot out of Washington campaign manager to try and get Paul Rudd's character elected, and of course she loses. They lose to Leslie, uh, who's Amy Poehler, and it was awesome to see Amy Poehler at the premiere of this show. Because obviously Aubrey Plaza was also in Parks and
Mhm.
Rec. That was like really her start. So, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, where's the biggest star? Where's Star Lord? Where's him? Let's get the whole Parks and Rec cast back together. Where's he at? Just bring the Parks and Rec cast up in here. Oh, he's too famous. Oh, shocker.
Well, I think all that needs to be done though is somebody just needs to tell Feige like, all right, all we need left is Nick Offerman, get Amy Poehler,
Yeah,
get Rob Lowe.
get Adam Scott up in here, and he was also at the premiere, which was cool.
Well,
Well, what? What was that?
Adam Scott's already taken by Sony. The
Oh, that's true. Oh, that's true. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Not really, but okay. So, yeah. Very, very cool. Are we ready to shift gears to some of the weeks? So we're gonna kind of do
yeah,
a
yeah.
shorter kind of sports end on this end of the show. I just very good show, fantastic. Do you want to start? I have a few.
Yeah, you can go ahead. Go first.
All right. So my let me get this right. My neutral zone infraction of the week goes to Johnny Newton of the Washington Commanders, who,
Yeah.
among other things, actually played pretty well yesterday and has played well in general this season. Was completely distraught and broken up that his was the penalty that literally lost the game for the Commanders against the Pittsburgh Steelers. That game was incredible, by the way. My phone was going off like no other NFL game before. The Steelers and Commanders both looked good, which was crazy. Steelers pick up a huge win, are now 7-2, very much in the driver's seat of the AFC North after that win, and genuinely look good. That's the thing. That's why you go and get Mike Williams, and he takes dart from Russell Wilson and wins the game. Wins the literally scores the winning touchdown. So yeah, but yeah, thank you, Johnny Newton, for solidifying it with a situation where the entire world knows that Mike Tomlin is not going to like actually call like run a play here. And then not only that, he jumped immediately. Like it was like first one, hut, bam. I'm like, wow, that never happens. Like it was brutal the way
Yeah.
it happened too. It was like
Yeah.
brutal. Like that
Yeah.
never happens. And of course, that's how we lose.
Yeah, it's the Commanders, so
It is. And as as PFT said, I needed this. I think Commanders fans needed this. This is my okay. come back down to earth loss. I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
let's chill out a little bit here.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
Come back down to
yeah,
reality. Yeah.
yeah. Like it comes right back down. No, you're not a contender this year, but are you good? Yes, 100%.
Yeah. They did get their quarterback, so good for them.
Hey, I think they got their guy for the next
Yeah.
X amount of years, man. I
I
think
mean, and
he's the
so
guy.
far, so
Jaden
far,
Daniels.
yeah, they're good. I will go ahead and start with coach of the week.
Okay.
And that goes to the sarcastic coach of the week. Goes to Sharon Moore of Michigan Wolverines. Uh,
Mm,
I don't know if you saw the ending of the
no.
Michigan Indiana game,
Tell me
but
about it.
it was a lot of things where like Michigan was in position to win the game, but the sort of the game management at the end with Michigan on defense just kind of was absolutely awful. They let them just go right down and win the game.
Mm,
And at one point, uh, Sherrone Moore let like 15 to 20 seconds just go off the clock because before calling timeout because I think he thought they were going to run a play. The only thing I could think of in my head was that like Michigan. I want to make sure I'm right on this.
yep.
I think that they Michigan converted. I think it was yeah. They or Indiana converted on like second down or something, and then he waited a long time before calling timeout. And my assumption is that he thought they were going to just quick run up to the line and go, but then they just didn't.
Yeah,
And so he was just like,
for
and
sure.
so it was just awful. Everybody in the building knew that they were just like because Michigan had the momentum, and then he just gave it right back to him. So
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
Staying in college football.
Hats off to Shrum Moore.
Oh yeah. Staying in college football, my demolishing of the week goes to the Crimson Tide. I did not have I like with the
Yeah.
season they've gone up and down. I don't know what Kalen DeBoer has like essentially tapped into regarding those guys, but the fact that they went into LSU and just stomped them into the ground, I was like, did not see that coming. I even was like, I picked LSU to win that game. You had Paul Skeens and Livy Dunn on a game day. It was Baton Rouge, man. Uh, and I literally for myself, I was in Louisiana for the first time in my life at the beginning about a week ago. Not in Baton Rouge, but another place knowing how hot it is and stuff down there and everything. But no, they even with the two losses, Alabama went into Death Valley and destroyed LSU. Didn't see that coming. So hats off to the Tide for showing that when they play angry, they can still blow a team out of the water, out of the off the face of
I
the.
no, I mean I just kind of coming off along with that. My dog of the week was Jalen Milrow.
There you go. Yep.
He went out and had a Lamar-esque performance.
Yeah.
He had I want to I want to make sure I get that right. He had 185 rushing yards and four rushing touchdowns on top of his
109 yards through
109
the
passing.
air.
Yeah, 109 passing yards. So I definitely he did a lot with his legs. He definitely showed that he's a threat that way. In kind of an improviser scrambling type of role. And look, I mean, I'm sure it's tough because they probably know that like things aren't great for the outlook. I mean, look, the SEC, a lot of people have two losses, still kind of wide open. So I mean, they just kind of have to win out from here. But
In,
I
in a
think they all know that the season didn't go the way they wanted, and
Well, in a world where they have two losses, I mean, you got to win every game left on your schedule
yeah,
like that. Literally
yeah.
like that. You got to do that. On the other side, though, when's the last time you saw LSU get stomped on like that at home at night? I mean, probably Coach O's second year when everything went off the rails. But like
Mm.
that was impressive. I mean, I was like, wow. I mean, LSU didn't expect that, especially in a rivalry where seemingly just crazy things happen all the time.
I mean, it is kind of a Brian Kelly special though.
It
Like if we're
is.
being honest,
It
like
is. We
I
sat here and
mean,
said that. We were like, well,
I
LSU could
mean,
just completely collapse. So,
I mean the all the momentum. Everybody's thinking that, you're, doing really well, but um
And that thing was over at halftime.
yeah, well, I mean, I guess I did kind of forget about it too. They did lose to Texas A&M last week.
That's
Was it
true.
2 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So the their season, I think, is definitely over as far as them being potential contenders, with 3 losses now. But
On a okay, I got two. I got two of the week, so I'll go one first. This happened, I think, since our last show, which is why I wanted to acknowledge it. My return of the year goes to Lee Corso at Bloomington. That was
yeah.
just awesome to see, and let's be real, at a time when Lee's getting up there in age, but it was awesome to see the way he was embraced in Bloomington. He's sitting there with his old, literally from the era, like crew neck with the Indiana on,
Mhm.
all those players, all those people that came back to see him and all that stuff. I'm like, see, this stuff makes me feel great considering, he's not going to be on this doing this forever. So yeah, I goes to Lee Corso. It's just awesome to go see the love. I mean, there's a giant mural of him in that stadium, and well deserved.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got another one?
Yeah, I mean, I have upset of the week, and that goes to Georgia Tech.
Ramblin' Wreck.
Finally completing something that many a team have tried to do to Miami all year.
Yeah.
Uh, and they
And one
managed to
team
knock off Miami.
that straight up
Yeah,
did beat them,
yeah,
and it
yeah,
was
yeah,
stolen by the conference. But lest we forget, Virginia Tech fans are like, yeah, we did beat them.
yeah.
I thought you beat them.
So yeah, Miami has been playing with their food all season, and they've almost lost a couple different times, and maybe lost one time before this. Uh,
100% lost to
yeah,
Virginia
yeah,
Tech, but like, okay, it
yeah,
didn't though.
yeah. Uh,
ACC on the phone. You make sure Miami wins this game, and we will never speak of this again. Oh man, steal of the year. That's that
yeah.
one. Uh,
Uh,
Georgia
so
Tech, good stuff.
yeah, I mean, do you have any thoughts about that game?
I did get to see a decent amount of it, and from the very beginning, it really just felt like every Miami game so far. I mean, it's like, yeah, I see what's going on here. Georgia Tech gets to a lead. It looks like what's going to happen, and then Miami bear like digs their way out of the hole. Right? It's like that's what they are this year. Here's what I will say: I don't think Miami's cooked as far as the playoff goes, but resume wise, that's going to be a bad loss at the end of the year. I really think that's going to be.
Mhm.
I mean, let's be real. Georgia Tech, they're solid, but they're a 6-4 team. They're a middle of the road ACC team, and at a time when it's looking like for me, we're probably definitely going to have at least 4 Big 10 teams in here. There's probably going to be 4 SEC teams in here, 3 for sure, 4 maybe. I'm really worried if I'm the ACC about what does our champion look like in this? Where do we fit in? Are we even going to get 2 teams in here? I think those conversations are happening this week. Hence the motivation to make sure that they go undefeated earlier this year. Because when this ultimately happens, where does that leave the ACC at the end of the year? That's my question.
Yeah, I mean, there's that leaves three. That leaves what, 3 spots, but for the Big 12 and ACC to split.
Yeah, I mean,
Because you got you got the group of five, the best group of five champion, and then the beyond that, I mean,
yeah, and I
you've got the Big 12 champion, the ACC champion, and then one other spot. So there's
right,
one at-large spot between the Big 12 and ACC to split.
right, and on that same note, I will give my upset of the week to the Ole Miss Rebels, who took down Georgia 28-10. Now that one I think kind of flew under the radar a little bit, but that's the second loss for Georgia.
Mhm.
Again, doing the thing that we thought was going to happen in the ACC. We sat here like a month ago, Casen, and talked about how the lane train could go right off the tracks. That has yet to happen. They're still a 2-loss team. They just
Yeah,
got a huge win against Georgia at home. Another one of those things in the South where they rush the field and destroy the goalposts. I have no idea how that's even legal. Like, how's that? How is that a thing? Like, that just seems incredibly unsafe. But anyway, I guess that's why they pay fines on it, right?
yeah,
But yeah, goes to Ole Miss, who are not out of the woods yet. That being said, I just feel like some SEC team that does not belong in the playoff is going to make it in, and it's going to be clear when it happens. You know?
Yeah, no, I mean it definitely. I mean that was, I mean kind of not a fluke at all. I mean it was
No,
straight up a beatdown. I
it
mean
was a beatdown.
Carson Beck looked like garbage. He's never really looked incredible for most of the
He's
season.
looked terrible for like the last three games.
Yeah.
For them.
And so yeah, I mean Georgia has always been kind of hanging on by a thread in a lot of these games. The ones that they did win. And so yeah, I mean it's probably one of the bigger wins of Lane's career, I would say. I mean it's a
Oh yeah.
top three win.
Don't
And
sleep on
yeah,
the
I mean
lane train.
they needed it and they got it. So
Absolutely.
good for them.
I have another of the week that's really my last one. It's kind of two other weeks in one. A, a melancholy so long partner of the week slash best boy of the week goes to Ben Herbstreit. I I was a
Yeah.
little bit I was honestly blown away. I mean, it was listen, we've all experienced the love of a good pet. I've never had dogs per se, but I had guinea pigs growing up. But the way and outpouring that Kirk Herbstreit got in the wake of Ben's passing, in which I don't know if you actually saw College Game Day this past weekend, Casen, but from the jump, it looked like he had been crying like that morning. Like he did not look okay. And then,
Mhm.
of course, they have the tribute to him, and there's that really heartfelt moment with a very, very real human interaction. Also amazing, the internet pointed this out. Amazing to see Lee consoling Kurt like he has to Lee many times in the past. I mean, their relationship is just amazing.
Mhm.
Rest in peace to Ben, great golden retriever who was 10 years old. He passed of cancer for Kirk Herbstreit. And Kirk was just honest about taking him on the road and everything. It was nice to see another puppy there with him. Like, oh, okay, so cool. He's going to should keep doing that. That's a therapeutic thing. But the part that got me was when he said, a lot of the times in this travel, hotel rooms can feel like vestiges of solitude or whatever he said, islands of
Mhm.
solitude. And I can tell you as an SID, it can feel that way sometimes. And I just thought it was and especially someone who travels like he does with the mileage he has on him in his career. Uh, I'm glad that he started doing that for himself because that just strikes me as I'm saddened for his loss, but I'm also happy he's going to continue doing it because it seems like a very good, positive thing Kirk did for his mental health.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I didn't really even think about it, but yeah, watching that package that they had for the during game day to sort of give the backstory about where him bringing Ben kind of came from, but it was kind of it was very interesting for him, for him to talk about like at first it was a thing for him, and then it kind of became this thing that
People
he felt like
expected
he
to
had
see
to
Ben
do. Yeah, yeah,
to just see this humongous golden retriever with them.
yeah.
I like what Pat
And it's
McAfee
always
said.
been cool to just kind of see him, let him just kind of walk around. Like he just walks around
Yeah,
the
he does,
set and he's just
that's what Pat says. He says he'll walk around with Ben with no leash, and Ben will just follow him. I'm like, that's cool. That's a true companionship right there. So, and it looks like he'll have another one too. I think the one there was Peter, but I think he's got other. I think he might have more than one golden retriever.
I think they have a handful. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Um
I'll tell you what. We as a species, we don't deserve dogs.
yeah, yeah.
There are
The
times when it really
dogs
feels
are
that
great.
way, man. So that was my last other week. Do you have another one?
Yeah, my last one is uh sorcery of the week, Agatha of the week. And that goes to my Kansas City Chiefs pulling out their last second win here against
They they really are something else. Like like again, they're so good, and it's like they don't even care. It's like okay, we've just got
yeah, I
yeah
mean they're having arguably the worst season on paper they've had in a long time.
in this
Pat's
dynasty.
having a I think honestly, but I'd have to look at the numbers, but I think Mahomes is having the worst year of his career.
I'm pretty
Like it
sure he
just
is.
feels that way. Like he's missing passes. Like there was a pass he threw to where Travis was in the end zone to get his second touchdown of the day, and he just sailed it like a mile over his head. And Travis was like, "What are you doing?"
What are we doing, man?
And so
Uh,
they're definitely struggling, I think, kind of on like the back-to-back Super Bowl hangover, trying to I don't know what exactly it is, but they're struggling at least to execute. But they are 9-0,
yeah,
and
but they're still
they're
undefeated.
able they've
Unbelievable.
had many like last second wins, and this one just absolutely bananas. I mean, the Broncos are in position to win this game, and then Leo Chenal just runs up the middle and blocks the kick. Absolutely
Unbelievable.
crazy way for that to end.
I mean, they're probably the only team that could literally have like probably like we lost the game type like post game conferences, and it's
Yeah,
like yeah, but we're 9-0. I mean, and I don't know. And what's funny is someone said it's like I'm watching the 2000 whatever it was 2020 Steelers who were sitting there 10-0. I'm like, I
yeah,
don't think it's even that because like I think everyone knew the Steelers were pretenders that year. Like we had no that team had no business being 10-0 at like we were at one point, and it's clear because we were exposed by the Browns right in the playoffs, and
yeah.
the down the stretch of that season was terrible, and that is not this. No, the Chiefs are still the Chiefs. It's just like they're winning games hand over fist stupidly. Like they'll somehow like Patrick Mahomes could turn around and throw a backward pass like 50 yards and it would somehow end in their correct end zone touchdown. I mean it's like the run Jake Arrieta was on when he was like throwing no hitters and they were winning games like 1-0 and he will have been the one that hit the home run. Like it's just stupid. Sometimes you're just too good for your own good. But there you go.
I mean, like we'll find out. I mean, Chiefs are going to Buffalo
Yeah.
next week, so we'll
Oh
find that one out.
yeah. Speaking of, there is one last of the week I can give, and it's that season over of the week goes to the New York Jets. And I think it's
Yeah.
mainly just everyone pointed that out over the last couple of years, but it is kind of amazing how everything is done because of a certain individual that comes to the roster, and then they turn in head coach who was probably keeping them decent, gets fired, and then they just nosedive. I mean, it's probably not the best analogy to use talking about the Jets, but still, I mean, it is kind of incredible for the exact thing that everyone said was going to show you in what happened happening, and it happened immediately. Like
Yeah. I mean,
they
it
were
is
good,
amazing that
fired Sala, and then they just complete. They're just terrible.
it is very interesting to see everybody say, "Hey, Aaron Rodgers is going to the Jets. He's going to destroy the franchise." Here we are, franchise destroyed.
Yeah,
I
here we are,
mean,
franchise
we
destroyed.
everybody called it.
You're
Everybody called it.
you're worse than you were a year ago without Aaron Rodgers with Zach Wilson. Uh
Yeah, it's crazy.
That being said, the Bills are going to run away with that division. I mean, they already have. They're 8-2. Everyone else is 3-7, 3-7, 2-6. It's kind of a bummer what's happened to the Dolphins, but yeah, it's going to be the AFC is going to be Buffalo and Kansas City again, unless a really pesky Steelers team can find a way to say, you know what, let's jump in there. Let Russ cook on his way to the Russ Wilson revenge tour. Let's do this. Call me not a good quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, yeah, Russ.
He's good.
I, I swear, if this ends up being like the Steelers win the division again somehow, like with Russ, like this is I'm out. Like
Where
this
the
is
I'm not even going to be an NFL fan anymore. Like what? I mean, Mike, a mixture between the organization and Mike Tomlin, man.
like you're
I
paying both like you're paying your two quarterbacks a total of like $2 million,
Yep,
and it's just like what?
yep, and we're winning games. And what's interesting is ever since Russ has taken over, the offense looks like good, straight up good. Like I'm like, well, are the Steelers like
Well,
going to do? And if you think like any year, if you think I'm afraid of a Ravens team that has done nothing but lose to the Steelers for the last like 10 years plus, even since they've been good. I'm sitting here like if we're like these games against them are going to be huge, and the Steelers usually beat them. So yes, I absolutely think the Steelers can win the division. But I digress. We talked mainly about football in that of the week segment, Casen. So I say we combine our last little segment here, NFL, college football. Is there anything we haven't talked about that you're like, we got to talk about that before signing off again for the week?
uh,
Costume of the week goes to you, by the way, Kevin Feige.
yeah, I mean, no, I mean, I'll also add. I mean, the Browns were on a bye this week, and it was the happiest week I've had since August. So, uh,
Brutal. The Cavs are undefeated, aren't they?
yeah, I was gonna bring that up. Yeah, I mean,
Hey,
we haven't talked about it, but the NBA is back, and the Cavs are
good.
probably the best team in the league.
Yes.
Um, so absolutely hilarious turn of events. Like they absolutely just killed the Warriors the other night.
Hmm. They're gonna
Which
they're gonna
stunning.
obliterate my Bulls tonight.
I
That's tonight at 8. That's gonna
Cavs are
be
good. Cavs are
destruction
good.
in Chicago.
So look, I mean, I've said it before, but like the Browns must die for the Guardians and Cavs to be
To
good.
live.
Like, I mean, the the Cavs won the championship. The Indians at the time went to the World Series, and what did the Browns do? They they went 0-16. So
Yeah, they went 0 and 16. All
or
right.
they well they that was the year they went 1-15, I think, but they proceeded to go 1-31 for both of those things to happen. But
Mm-hmm.
it is what it is. But I will say I on the Cavs, I heard a very funny story, or I saw one on Twitter. I don't know if it's true because it just seems bananas, but it's absolutely believable. So we talked about at the time the Milwaukee Bucks fired their head coach like in January,
Yeah.
and then they hired Doc Rivers. When they were hiring Doc Rivers, their general manager wanted to hire Kenny Atkinson, who the Cavs hired as their head coach. But Jimmy Haslam, the new partial owner of the Bucks, said no, hire Doc Rivers instead.
Oh,
So, I mean, I don't know if it's true, but it's absolutely believable and hilarious if that's true.
man. Unreal. Well, I'll say this before we jump out of here. If you listen to the end and you listen to our whole show, we know who you are. We love you. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for listening and tuning in. Listen, at a time that is so much divisiveness, I'll tell you one thing that comes to mind. They're one of my favorite movie quotes of all time. To circle back to Marvel, was said. I think I might have told you about this. I keep a quote list, right? I
Mhm.
have quotes of people in my life who both I've worked with, but also movie quotes. So like, there's some fictional people on that list as well. But it's mostly stuff from my parents or people I've worked with, things like that. Quotes that I hang on to, and it's fantastic. But one of which is from the first Avengers movie, and it was said by Nick Fury. As I swear, it was a throwaway line, but jog your memory back. It's when Loki has just escaped. Okay, when he played them all like a
Mhm.
fiddle, Loki escapes and he went out and whatever. And Maria Hill is going down the list of things to Nick Fury of this is happening, this is happening. What do we do here and all that? And then Nick Fury finally just turns around and says, "Until such time as the world ends, we will act as though it intends to spin on." And then he turns around and she stops talking because she understood the message. I'll say that again. Until
Mhm.
such time as the world ends, we will act as though it intends to spin on. That is one of my favorite quotes at all because it's such a good motto to live by. I remember, saying it when some other current event issue broke out. I remember what it was. I won't say it on here. It's not a really big deal, but there was another news story that happened in the last like 4 years, something like that. And I said it, I kept saying that at the time. And it can apply to any situation. I think for a lot of folks, it applies to, some things that happened in this past week. I mean, I, for one, uh, am just so grateful that I have this show, and I always look forward to talking to you, brother, every single week. Whatever we usually have on the docket, but I swear I look forward to this show because I swear it's somewhat therapeutic for me. But it's nice to have a space to talk about these things that bring us together.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. I agree with that sentiment.
Write that down yourself.
Yeah.
Start a quote list of your own. I swear, when I go back and I look at it in things in life, I mean, I swear, someday if I'm ever writing a memoir about my career or whatever, a lot of them are making it in there. So, and if anything, maybe I've even had a few quotes for some people in the future. I just hope they're good ones. But But that's the show. That's what we got for another week. Thank you so much for listening. Any parting thoughts, my friend?
Oh yeah, I'll just
Yeah.
the new Mission Impossible trailer came out today.
Did it really?
The Yeah,
I
so
have not seen it.
it is it was so originally it was Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 and 2. It's been retitled. We knew that was going to happen. It is now Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning.
Oh, cool.
Um,
Okay.
so the trailer, the first trailer dropped today. So go check that out.
I'm literally
Super
going to end
awesome.
this and
Can't
go do
wait.
that immediately.
Yeah,
Love that. Love me some Mission Impossible. Can't wait to talk about it with you, man.
absolutely.
This is Kellan,
This is Casen.
and we'll see you as always at the next stop.